Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, all of you who are sitting here and all of you who are watching us online. This is the World Conservation Forum, and my name is Andrea Joós. I am a biology teacher and a science communicator, and I'm super excited for our upcoming topic. As you can see behind on the LED, it's about viruses, diseases. Does nature strikes back? How can we defend ourselves? What is happening at all? So, without any further ado, let me invite to the stage my partner, who is going to be the speaker, virologist, university professor, a true expert of his field, Miklós Rusvai.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation, and thank for the audience to be here and choose us to listen to.
Yes, they already clapped because when we arrived, and that's a big trust. So thank you very much for your applause in advance. So let us begin at the base. What is a pathogen, and how can we define it?
Okay, pathogens. Pathogens is the cumulative name of the microorganisms which cause disease in humans, in animals, in insects, in practically each and every species of the world. So these pathogens will cause different diseases. The pathogens will fall into 4 subclasses. These are bacteria, fungi, viruses, and parasites. Practically, these 4 pathogens will cause the different diseases in us, humans, and also in the animals. Those pathogens which are common in humans and in animals, for example, rabies or salmonellosis, or, for example, different lice species. These are called zoonotic pathogens, and those diseases which are common in humans and in animals are the zoonoses.
Zoonosis, like Z-O-O.
Zoo, from the zoo
like
word. And this is about 2/3 of the human pathogens are zoonotic pathogens, that these are common in humans and in animals.
And from which point can we call a disease a disease? So there are pathogens, clear, but sometimes we don't even see them.
Yes, of course, and some pathogens we can carry without disease signs. Disease signs are obvious because we have fever, we sneeze, we have a headache or a stomachache or diarrhea, or the different diseases are different. The pathogens, when they invade us, they will cause diseases, but not always. Some pathogens are obligatory pathogens, and these obligatory pathogens, when they enter into the body of the host, then they will obligatorily cause the disease. Others are...
That's for sure.
That is for sure. Others are facultative pathogens. They are waiting an opportunity, and if this opportunity arrives, then these pathogens will cause disease. For example, the common cold. We carry different viruses and bacteria which are responsible for the common cold, but we shall show the symptoms only if we get cold. And the immune system is deprived, and therefore these pathogens, these facultative pathogens, which we carry continuously, have the opportunity to cause the disease, or the herpes, which is very frequent. If there is a reduction in the immune ability of the human, the herpes virus which we carry continuously, will appear within a few hours on the lips.
So it all depends on our immune system in these cases.
Everything depends on the immune system and on the pathogen. Pathogen and the host's immune system are always interacting with each other.
Sure. You already mentioned bacteria and viruses that we are carrying every day. Let's see it a little bit closer. What is the difference between a bacteria and a virus?
Viruses are obligatory cell parasites, so they always, when they cause infection in us, they have to penetrate into the cells, and when they penetrate into the cells, they will multiply within the cells and destroy the cells.
So without any other cell, they cannot reproduce themselves.
Yes, they can
do we say that they are living things, are microorganisms, or they're not yet?
According to the modern definition, living things have unique genetic information. And since viruses have their unique genetic information, that is why we say that they are living creatures.
So even without the ability to multiply themselves, they are living, well, organisms,
yes.
so to say,
yes.
because they have their own genetical information there.
Yes.
Clear.
Okay, so they are intracellular pathogens. They cause disease because they destroy cells. As more cells they destroy in our body, as more severe is the disease usually. Contrary to that, the bacteria mostly are not intracellular. They are living on the surface of the body. They are living in the intestinal system. They are on our skin.
We have friendly bacteria too in our
each and every person carries about 3 kilogram bacteria continuously. So we are hosting even presently about 3 kilograms bacteria within us and on our surface. They do not cause or most bacteria do not cause disease. These are also facultative pathogens, but there are useful bacteria which help the digestion. They produce vitamins and so on. Contrary to that virus, there are no useful viruses. The most what we can expect from viruses, they do not cause harm. But usually the bacteria are also harmless. They can be even useful. Some very pathogenic bacteria, the obligatory pathogenic bacteria, will cause, of course, disease. Bacteria are causing disease through toxins. They are producing toxins, and these toxic material will cause the disease in humans, in animals, in plants, and practically in other higher organisms.
And what is needed for a bacteria or a virus to get to a human? So how does it, okay, we spread into each other, but what is before that? So now we are building up the whole system. We are understanding, okay, what is a bacteria, what is a virus, what is a disease? How does it arrive to the human body? And is there any carrier or is there any beginning to the story?
There are different ways of infection. Of course, the most frequent is, for example, the droplet infection. We are also calling these airborne diseases. Via the air, what we exhale, there are small droplets, they carry the pathogen, and others will inhale it. This is the airborne infection or droplet infection. Others are foodborne infections, so with the food which is infected, salmonellosis, for example, will infect us, and these are the so-called foodborne infections. There are also other venereal infections which are sexually transmitted. There are again different which are transplacental, from the mother through the placenta, they are infecting the fetus. This is also another way of infection. And also there are very frequent so-called vector-borne infections. For example, different parasites, mosquitoes, fleas, flies, ticks are able to carry viruses and bacteria, and when they are feeding on us, they are suckling blood from us, they will infect us via the bite.
And okay, we cannot avoid addressing the elephant in the room. And if we take a look at the current virus we are starting to become very friendly with, or at least we have a relationship, what was needed to this virus to get to the human and get to our species so fast and cause this much trouble?
Okay. So
from the biological perspective.
First of all, we have to clarify that coronaviruses are very common in nature. We know only about this coronavirus, but we know more than 400 different coronavirus species.
And they weren't just air-borne viruses, but also vector-borne viruses. So how did they spread the coronavirus?
No, these are usually not vector-borne viruses. So no vector is playing a role in the transmission of coronaviruses. Just I'm turning in my mind, but I really can't remember even one which is transmitted by vector. So they are causing usually foodborne or droplet infection.
Food and droplet.
They do not cause even transplacental infections, so usually the mother will not infect even the fetus. So foodborne and droplet infections. But back to the original question, the vast majority of coronaviruses are infecting bats. So bats are the...
Why? Why bats?
Because during the evolution, somehow they adopted themselves to bats.
So they co-evoluted themselves.
The co-evolution, yes. We are talking about co-evolution in case of several viruses. And these coronaviruses co-evolved with bats. And bats carry several hundred different types of coronaviruses. We know that in the beginning of the 2000s, in 2002, 2003, the first modern coronavirus has changed the host, and from the bat via the palm civet, another animal, it changed the host species and it adopted itself to the humans. This was the SARS-CoV-1 virus, the first coronavirus of the modern ages, what we get acquainted with, and this virus disappeared within 3 or 4 years. And it was in China also. The Chinese virologist has warned the world since decades that there will be another coronavirus sooner or later, because they continuously were investigating the bat coronaviruses, and they warned us, other virologists, that sooner or later another bat coronavirus will adopt itself to humans. The second was in 2012, 2013, the MERS virus. Also from the bat, it evolved to the humans via the camel. This is in the Middle East, and it is also of bat origin. And now in 2019, a third coronavirus from the bat adopted itself by changing the host to the humans, and the SARS-CoV-2 is now the novel coronavirus of humans, but we don't know the intermediate species. In the first coronavirus, it was the palm civet. It's some like of a cat or a mustelid animal. In the second case, in the mares, it was the camel. And in the third case, we do not know the intermediate species. That is why there are some conspiration theories, conteos, which say that experimentally this virus was produced because we do not know the intermediate species. Therefore, we do not know how this virus adopted itself to the humans.
Let me ask about the intermediate species. So exactly what is that in terms of viruses and diseases? So somewhere the virus is evolving itself, and it needs another species before it gets to the human?
It is not it's not obligatory. So maybe and may not be. So it is not always there. So that is why I say that perhaps this time it was not necessary. The role of the intermediate species can be missing in this case.
Sure. If we go back again a few steps and take a look at the climate change itself, how did climate change have its part in the spread of the pathogens, not just the viruses, but all the pathogens that are here now or causing problems on different places around the world, well, where we weren't even, we are still surprised that they are there?
The climate changes are most involved in the spread of the vectors. We were talking previously that there are vector-borne diseases.
Like mosquitoes and ticks.
Different insects.
Or
we also call
well.
arthropod-borne diseases because ticks, mosquitoes, fleas, and so on. So different arthropods may carry the virus. And these arthropods, thanking to the climate change, are spreading to the north usually. So from the tropics, several new insect species now can find their habitat also in the Mediterranean, also in our climate. And as the habitat is going to the north, more and more pathogens which are spread via these vectors may infect also us. That is why there are some strangely sounding names. Chikungunya, which is also present in Europe.
Chikungunya, how does
Chikungunya virus,
Chikungunya virus,
dengue
and the
fever,
Zika and
West Nile virus. These are all present already in Europe. West Nile fever now, which is causing encephalitis, more frequent in Hungary than the tick-borne encephalitis. So the West Nile fever encephalitis is causing the most encephalitis cases, for example, in Hungary in this decade.
And only because now the climate is so friendly for the vector to move north.
Yes, the mosquito, which is spreading the virus, is able to survive now the winters because the winters are very mild. There are not so cold, harsh winters as were in the 20th century. So nowadays the mosquitoes are able to overwinter, and these mosquitoes which are spreading from the Mediterranean and from the sometimes even from Africa are able to survive and spread the diseases. Also, malaria is reappearing also in Europe simply because the malaria spreading mosquitoes are able to survive.
I also heard about a virus, maybe it's Zika, I am not sure, where it started with the mosquito, a vector-borne virus, and then it swapped and decided to be born by sexual transmission. And I'm not sure if it's the one, please correct me. How is that working?
There are mixed transmissions, so some viruses, some bacteria can spread via 2 or even 3 different ways. Not only one way of infection is possible. So for example, tick-borne encephalitis, again, it is, as it is reflected in the name, it is usually tick-borne. The ticks will spread it. But for example, the last outbreak in Hungary, 4 children died in this outbreak were spread via milk, because the goat which the goat which was giving the milk was bitten by the tick. It got the virus. It was secreted with the milk, and the children were drinking the milk and got the encephalitis, and 4 fatal cases were in Zala County due to this tick-borne encephalitis, which in fact was milk-borne encephalitis spreading via the raw milk because it was not boiled.
So, well, that is kind of an example of how nature strikes back. What can scientists do? What can doctors do if the case is that? Or how to prevent, how to answer, how to embark on this kind of trying to survive? Or, yeah, we can also call this a coevolution, right? So, like humans and the pathogens.
I think it is not coevolution. It is more or less a co-stimulation, or I don't know how to call it, because just like the armor and the weapon, as harder is the armor, as stronger is the weapon to get through it. So as better is the defense of the humans against different diseases, we have antibiotics, we have vaccines, we have different drugs to prevent and treat the diseases, and the pathogens through the evolution are able always to avoid these. There is resistance, antibiotic resistance, which is also spreading and so on. So this co-stimulation means that we are inventing new and new drugs, we are inventing new and new vaccines, and the bugs, the different pathogens always will find a way to circumgo, and the infection will anyhow happen sooner or later.
And how about the immune system? It's, we mentioned before that always it depends, well, not always, but it depends on the immune system if we get infected by those, for example, the common flu, bacteria or viruses. So how can we prepare our immune system? I guess not with the antibiotics.
With difficulties. So first of all, and it is rarely told by the experts even, that it is mainly genetic. So unfortunately, we can do a lot, but sometimes it is merely luck, whether we get through a disease or we die to it. Think in the medieval ages, a few hundred years ago, there was no vaccine, there was no antibiotic. The different infections, the different diseases came, but not everybody died to the pox or the plague or the cholera. A lot of people survived because genetically they were resistant to the disease. Even nowadays, we know that, for example, in the last year, there was no vaccine and there was no treatment against the coronavirus. Let's get back to this topic again. And a lot of people survived the infection without any problem. Genetically, they were able to resist the virus, and now that there is vaccine, more people will be resistant because the immune system can be taught to defend the host against this pathogen. But even originally, the immune system in certain people is able to resist without vaccination. But the chances are much better if the people gets vaccinated, because simply we can prepare our immune system to learn the defense against the viruses and the bacteria by vaccination.
Can you tell us other stories of battles won against diseases?
Yes, the success story is the pox or variola. This disease or this plague was causing mass deaths throughout the world since centuries. Pox face is seen also in the Egyptian mummies. So we know that it was present already in the ancient Egypt, so it was causing infection even in the age of the pharaohs. And the immunization, the first real immunization, was made at the end of the 18th century in 1789 by a medical doctor named Jenner, who with the help of the cowpox virus immunized humans against the smallpox.
That's where the name vaccine comes from,
Vaccine,
the vacca.
because vacca means cow
Yes.
in Latin, and vaccination comes from the also vaccinia virus is the cowpox virus. Vaccinia was used for vaccination of humans. So with the help of the cowpox virus, this Jenner made resistant people to the smallpox, which is much more dangerous of humans. Smallpox is lethal. Cowpox is very, very mild virus, will not cause never death in humans. And with the help of vaccinia virus, Jenner immunized people against the smallpox. And this procedure was so successful that within 200 years, the smallpox was eradicated from the world. So the last smallpox cases were reported in 1978. In the last 33 years, there was no reported smallpox cases. Therefore, we can declare that the world is free of smallpox. And even children are not immunized nowadays against the smallpox. So we have still the scars of the smallpox vaccination. Elderly people has this scar on the upper arm, but children will not get immunized nowadays against smallpox, so it was eradicated. Another very dangerous virus, it is of veterinary importance, the rinderpest, also has been eradicated. And the poliomyelitis, which is also a very dangerous human virus, is nearly eradicated, but a few spots of the world are still infected in Asia and in Africa. But this poliomyelitis most probably will be the next virus to get rid of.
If we go back to that first story with the smallpox, it is a bold decision to take a cow's disease and give it to a human. Is the story true that this doctor or general, he infected his own child first?
The child of a nobleman who was very much afraid of the virus because several people in his family died to smallpox in a previous wave of the infection, and he had only one child, and he had heard that this immunization may help. Originally,
didn't
it
even
was
yet have the name immunization. They didn't even know about immune
it was
system.
simply an observation.
Yes.
Milkmaids did never died to smallpox because from the udder of the cows they got infected on the hand, and by milking the cow, they got infected, and milkmaids were always resistant to the smallpox. They did not die to it. That is why this journal showed that perhaps the cowpox infection is able to prevent the smallpox infection. And this observation that milkmaids did never get the disease, he was turning in his mind, and with this successful immunization, he started the modern vaccination protocol. And for a few decades only the smallpox vaccine was working, but later also the rabies, the anthrax, and other, you know, the 19th century was the best period of the microbiology. Bacteria were discovered, viruses were discovered, vaccines were discovered. So that was the age
antibiotics
of,
too.
Yes, that was a very, very prospering age for the microbiology.
Well, we can call nowadays also a prospering age, like how we see now the vaccination and all the science is going so fast and a lot of work into that. How do you see this? So if we move back to the COVID topic, like the fourth wave or the Delta and the Lambda and all the variation, what is to come? Are the waves still as big, or they are getting smaller, or what is your view on the current situation?
My guess, personally, so it is not an official point of view, so I, as virologist, I think that the most severe wave here in Hungary was the third. Now we are at the beginning of the first wave, but I think that it will go as high as the previous one in the spring. It will not leave behind so many lethal cases. I hope there will be not so many casualties, not so many people will go to the breathing machine and so on. So I think that from now on, these waves will be lower and lower. And after, let's say, 2 years, let's say from the end of 22, this virus will be not more dangerous than the common cold viruses.
Those who we are already carrying
around. We are carrying in the throat, we are carrying in the nose, parainfluenza virus, riovirus, rhinovirus, adenovirus. Most viruses what we carry and which are causing common cold, most people did not hear even the name of these viruses. And very few people know that there are 4 classical coronaviruses which are causing also common cold, what we carry continuously. These coronaviruses in the previous centuries has been already tempered. So they are, let's say, domesticated. We got used to them and they got used to us. They will not kill us and we tolerate them. And this COVID, this SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus will be the 5th coronavirus what we may carry without any symptoms.
So we really make friends with the virus.
Yes, we shall make friends with this virus also, as several other viruses are within us, and they are helpful in a certain sense because they keep awake of our immune system. So simply they constantly stimulate our immune system. That is why it works in most people properly.
And it's a good training for the immune system.
It is a good training.
It's always active, and then if a new virus is coming or an old one reintroduces itself, it is easier for us to just stay healthy and not even notice the virus was there.
Yes.